So it is Monday, September 9th, 2019. It is 5:30 p.m. We're in the Nashua High School North Boardroom, and this is the Curriculum and Evaluation Committee. We didn't do that. Thank you, Dr. McKinney, for putting on the recording. Okay, so it's Curriculum and Evaluation Committee meeting, Monday, September 9th, 2019. It's 5:30 p.m. We're in the Nashua High School North Boardroom. All right, so committee members, Mrs. Porter is here. Ms. Timmons is joining us by phone. Ms. Timmons, are you alone?
No, I'm not alone, but I do have earbuds on and they cannot hear the meeting.
Oh, perfect, thank you. Ms. Hohensie?
Here.
Ms. Oden is our alternate, and she's here. We also have Ms. Van Twyver, Mr. Coffin, and Dr. McKinney. Okay. All right. Our first thing on our agenda is the Nashua School District, Nashua Public Library Summer Reading Partnership. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. McKinney to introduce. And you'll see that we have papers in our packet.
This is the second year of our summer reading partnership, and Jen Hosking from the Nashua Public Library is here to share an annual update.
All right, thank you for having me. So this summer, our summer reading theme was Universe of Stories, and as Mr. McKinney just said, this was our second year working together, and this year had an even bigger impact than last year. What we did was we had worked together last year to have a systematic approach to outreach to all grade 3 through 5th graders with our presentations. And this year we expanded that based on feedback from the district and also reaching out to the middle school and working with Assistant Superintendent Fitzpatrick. We had our staff at the library present to every grade through grade 2 through grade 8. So that was extremely successful. We had a lot of energy and excitement created through those presentations. We had talked at the end of last year about wanting to partner more with Power Scholars, and we did that as well, partnering with the YMCA and 21st Century. We had our staff go out to all 3 sites each week. They worked on programs together, and they also brought all the summer reading materials with them, so students could log their reading there, they could redeem their, collect their incentives, they could log minutes if they didn't have access to technology. Our staff was bringing it all with them on the road. In addition to that, what I think was one of the most successful aspects of the partnership was we had weekly pop-up libraries, and that was one of the approaches we took to trying to reach students in some of the inner city neighborhoods who could potentially not find transportation to the library. So we had pop-up libraries each Wednesday at either one of the pools, or we also went to Boys and Girls Club and the PAL organization. And the reason I say that, I think that was one of the most successful approaches, is we had district staff volunteer to join us at those pop-ups. So we had 1 public library staff member and 2 district staff members. And what was amazing about that is we had district staff all the way from teachers, librarians, up through assistant principals and principals, and Assistant Superintendent Fitzpatrick was going to come, but then Dr. Mosley trumped us with a meeting, so she couldn't make it. But I just thought it was amazing the commitment they were making, many of them on their own time, to come and meet the students. And the numbers, if you look at them in your packet, and we do have a full report to go to the board as well, they were all higher than last year. They all show improvement, but I think it's the outcomes and the impact that aren't measured by numbers that really made it fun and enjoyable. So seeing those students, when they saw, for instance, Mr. Boardman in his shorts at Centennial Pool, they didn't know what to do. It was like mind blown. Wait a minute, Mr. Boardman, what are you doing here? And then he's asking them about what they're reading and what they're doing. And at the pop-up libraries, the goal is really to bridge that gap of the that academic break. So we're bringing books Really, we want them to participate in the summer reading program and we want them to log, but what's more important is that they're just taking those books home for their own collection. So whether they're participating in the summer reading program or not, they all get to take books. If their parents are there, we want the parents taking books. If their younger brothers and sisters are with them, we want them taking the books. And that was, I think, a really successful approach as well to getting families engaged in the program. So we had parents logging, because really if you're reading to your student or your student's reading to you or to a brother and sister, it all counts. We also had a partnership with Nashua Transit, which was really successful, where they were open to sharing bus passes with us. So if we saw students that maybe we knew couldn't come or really expressed an interest in a program we were doing, we had the ability to give them a pass to come to the library. So the community in general, I think, was really supportive of the summer reading program on a broad scope, whether it was being a host for us to be there as a site for a pop-up library, whether it was joining us in what we did with the engagement. You know, there was connections made for students between seeing our staff at the Power Scholars program on Thursday and then the following Wednesday seeing them at PAL, and they were like, wait a minute, Miss Kathy, I know you. You were just doing a program with me. You just read me a book. That was really great. So I have nothing but good things to say. A couple of highlights. So we had the 8 pop-up libraries that we had district staff helping us with. We had the school librarians and the public librarians created a joint suggested reading list, which was really great. So that was a true collaborative process working together from the get-go. District librarians lent us our books for the summer, so we had a big enough supply for the kids who wanted to read those. We had students from all 17 schools, Nashua School District schools, participate. I think 6 of the 7 Title I elementary schools saw an increase in participation, which that was one of our goals. And I also really attribute that to some of the staff and their promotion of the program before the summer let out. Some of those librarians that joined us at the pop-ups, that connection they were making between when they left and what are you reading, and remember when we talked about how to do this program, the students really showed engagement with that. In the pre-K to grade 5 program, we had a 34% increase overall in readership. So that was great. And I think what's interesting, and you can see this in the full report that we've generated, so there's summary documents that will show the participation by school, but I think what's really valuable is to show the data by school from 2018 to 2019, because that will really show the impact, for instance, Mount Pleasant last year, Mount Pleasant this year, instead of comparing all the schools against each other. To compare the data amongst the schools is really powerful. The older program, the middle school and high school program, saw a 16% increase in participation, and I think that was really great. And this was our first year focusing on our outreach to middle school students, and having the administration help us with that and support that was really beneficial. Overall, 9 of the 12 elementary schools saw an increase in student participation and amount of minutes read. So our program tracks minutes read, and then there's different tiers set for, say, you read 100 minutes or 60 minutes or 120 minutes. There's different things you can do, and then we have activities as well for those that maybe aren't as strong readers, but we still want them to be able to participate. So for instance, if you solve a math problem that we have, if you write a review, those are all things that can earn you incentives as well. So those are kind of the big highlights I wanted to mention. I did also in the report want to highlight the staff that helped us, because I want them to get recognition for taking time out of their summer. And like I said, it was across the board. It was elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. It was librarians, it was teachers, it was administrators. So I want to give all of them a big thank you from us. It was a huge help, and they showed up with open minds, just asking what they could do. They were willing to do anything, and they were very supportive in the engagement activities we brought and engaging the kids in reading. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Okay, Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes, I'm excited about this. I really am. What did you do to get third, fourth, and fifth? Well, let's see, third, fourth, and fifth graders in there at such high numbers? Did you have to lasso them and bring them in, or did they just
So
come?
our summer reading program is all done online. So they don't actually have to come into the library, but I think what's powerful in that is, one, the presentations that we do, and for the fourth and fifth graders, it was the second year they were hearing the presentation. I think the district staff has a lot to do with that, so I think what they're doing at the end of the year. We are also using a reading software called Beanstack, which is what we used for, or what was used for the Mayor's Reading Challenge. We also did a reading program at Ledge Street with their ELL homework program with that same program. And part of our goal in using that across library programs across the city is to get people familiar with it, and so that once they have the account, they can use it for any reading program. So it just makes it easier and easier.
Oh, I'm really encouraged by this and glad to see that we have so many teachers that are willing to give up some time during the summer to help out with the reading. I'm very much reading importance. So you said that there was another report that you had that showed more detail, or?
Yes, so this is a summary document, and then we have a full report that we'll supply to the district administration as well as a copy to the board.
I'd like to see that too. Thank
Okay,
you so
sure.
much. It was a great program.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. Meet myself as well. Very impressed and also appreciate the participation from the staff and the community. I'm particularly intrigued by this idea of a library pop-up. I think it's very innovative, and you're bringing the library to the community. So I'm curious, is there anything the board can do financially? In other words, what does it cost for a pop-up? In other words, to gather materials, or even a set of wheels to haul it in where you're going, or you're clearly making a strong contribution to community. And I can't thank you enough for that.
Sure.
And to you, the library staff, everybody. But I just want to see, I don't think it's a lot of money to do that. It's really effort on the part of the staff and the parents. Gathering materials is probably a very incidental cost, but I'm thinking, is there a way that we could put in a future budget to help you with this program?
So I would say your timing's impeccable, because we created 2 pop-up systems this year. But I think where the funding comes, so once you create kind of the package or the kit that you take out with you, there's not much continuation except for purchasing the books that you give students. So we don't, in general, we were trying to purchase new books for students rather than going through donations that people had given, because we thought everyone deserves good quality books, right? So funding of books would always be helpful. If you wanted to fund another setup with the intention that it would be used somehow in collaboration with the district staff, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to never say no to funding. And I think there's always ways that we could get creative with how we use it in terms of expanding what we do with pop-ups. And especially if we're working together, we could do a lot of different things.
Right. So if I can just put an idea out there, let it churn for a while. So the board budget process kind of begins February, end of February into March. And there'll be presentations, and then by the end of March or so, we kind of produce a budget and see what happens with the city. So in that February timeframe, you could reach out to the administration and, say, can you give us 5,000? I have no idea what the number is. I'm just making this up. Can you give, we'd like to receive $5,000 from the district to support a new pop-up and replacement books for, the 8 programs we already have.
Sure.
I'm trying to help you as much as I can.
Yeah,
I hope
definitely.
you see my direction.
Yep.
So turn on that.
Yeah,
See if
we're
there's
happy to do
something,
that.
because that's cheap money that leverages in a very, very big way. And I would just like to see the board support that as much as possible.
Great,
So
yeah.
and thank you all again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. O'Hensy?
Thank you. I also am thrilled. I was in Oakland this summer, and they have like little pop-ups in their parks where they have little booths where they put left books, and you can take one and leave one or read it while you're in the park. They have better weather than we do over the winter, but I don't know if something like that is possible in maybe we as a district in our school playgrounds or something, but what you're doing is fabulous, and I'm thrilled to hear it.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Raymond?
Thank you. I apologize for my tardiness.
And we want to show that you joined us at 5:45.
Thank you. I'm a parent as well as a board member, and both my children did this program this summer, and they both came home from school with the little flyer and like just really excited about the video and about doing the program. And so I think it was great. It was great. We were frequent flyers at the library this summer, which is wonderful. And I just want to commend both the library staff and our district staff for giving their time to this. And not only this, but the other activities around the space theme this summer. So there were like, making space activities and art and STEM stuff. And there was like a lock-in one night at the library for the middle schoolers. And it really got that middle school set into the library, into reading and thinking about things over the summer when they'd rather be probably playing video games. And so getting kids excited about this is just wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Oden?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for all you're doing. I agree with what everybody's saying, but from my perspective as a former elementary school teacher, that amount of fluency that many of these students lose during the summer, I would imagine that you're bridging a gap there, and it will be very helpful when they go back to school. So thank you, and thank you to all our staff who volunteered their time for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, and I concur with everything that's been said. For me, the most important thing is that we're trying to create kids who love reading. And that's the most important thing for me. So anything that we can do to get kids wanting to read is super important. So I thank you for all of your efforts. And it's a pleasure to have you here to report on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. Based on what Mrs. Oden said about the gap over the summer where the kids are not necessarily reading, so, and is there a way that we can track participation in this program to see what the impact is over the summer? Or does that just normally happen when you do the testing for the next year? You see what the retention is, and so that's how you find out? I'm just trying to help validate the program even more to show that gap learning really helps in a more quantifiable way. So I was just trying to see how you can further embellish the validity of the program. I have a feeling it's there.
So we do have, in the full report that we share with the district, we do include all participants, so that the district does know who participated, they know how many minutes they read, and they know if they wrote any reviews. So that data is available to them. And I forgot to mention another addition that we're doing this year is we're printing certificates for the, we'll do it for the grade school students so that they can get recognition at school as a follow-up from their school staff, so that hopefully that will get another connection between the school and the library for them and the summer reading.
Good idea.
Well, thank you very, very much. And thank you for making time to come here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay. The second thing on our agenda is equally exciting. We are getting an update on the Summer Kindergarten Institute, and we have some guests here to inform us. So Dr. McKinney, would you like to introduce and give a little introduction here?
Sure. I think this is our second or our third annual Summer Kindergarten Institute this past summer. And Sherry Fulton, principal at Dr. Crisp, and Trish Ballou, principal at Charlotte, are leading this initiative, so I'll turn it over to them.
We also have with us Catherine Holmes. She's a kindergarten teacher at Charlotte who also participated. She's a little overwhelmed, so.
I'm used to talking to much smaller people.
One of the nice things about meeting with the kindergarten every summer is that we kind of discuss the standards, how to measure them, what do they do for activities. When we have 12 elementary schools, it's very rare that we can get all of them together for a long period of time. So they come, and we saw the majority of our kindergarten teachers there this summer, which was great.
I think we're really lucky because, and I've said this to Garth, we're one of the only groups that get to meet with their teachers every single summer. And just and I'll let them speak to that, but just the excitement and the commitment of being together and going over things that are happening, a chance to talk with each other. Out of this has come this kindergarten screener, which Trish can tell us more about that. But just having that opportunity to be with our teachers, it's just invaluable.
The first part of our session, we took time to review the screening sessions, how they went, how the screener itself went. Were there things that we could tweak to make it more effective? Were we missing anything? So we were, as a team, discussed what did work, what didn't work, and how best to address those situations. And even in the time, like when we took a break, we'd go adjust it, print it, and they'd look at it. So it was really nice to have them as part of it, instead of just emailing back and forth, trying to make sure we address everyone's concerns. There were a few tweaks. We found certain things not effective. We saw we needed more time with other things, so we were able to adjust the screener and this cover sheet, because this cover sheet itself is used for placement. The top part of it gives us scores in all different areas, so when we're looking at classes, we have their little faces on the cover sheets, as well as their scores, so we can build very well-balanced classrooms.
We're really fortunate to be able to do the screener like we're doing it now, because we used to do it in the spring, and they change tremendously, as you know, over the summer. So that was really difficult once we had children placed. Then when they came back to us, it was very different. So being able to do it, screen them, and the day or 2 days later they start with us is just really amazing.
We then shifted to the play-based surge from the state and everyone's expectation and understanding of it, which is so important to build that common background. So we did a PowerPoint from the state. We adjusted it a little to address our needs. We also showed them where the state PowerPoints are so that they can all watch them on their own and be on the same page. The nice thing is we were able to pause it, have conversations. What does that look like here? How are we addressing the standard in a playful manner so that we're having them move? There's a huge shift when we're looking at 5-year-olds. We need to get them moving a quarter of their day. And we just really need to incorporate that movement breaks in different activities while still keeping the standards in mind. And with all those minds in the same room, it's a great time to have those conversations of what could we do differently. And there was many different ideas that came to the table that we could share.
From that, we let them build their schedules. So everyone brought schedules of what they had tried or what might work, and they had actual team meetings with themselves, their own teams, and then with other teams to see, well, how are you doing that? How are you addressing that? So that's something we've used the past 2 years that has just really been amazing for the teachers to be able to share that time.
We ended the day with a Christmas time because we did workstations that address standards for kindergarten, and we were able to purchase materials to create these workstations. So each classroom has the same workstations and the same kind of activities that address specific standards. We were fortunate enough that Dr. McKinney was able to find a grant for the materials. So everyone left with the same materials ready to start. And both Sherry and I got so many emails from so many very excited teachers, even weeks after, saying, I've been playing with it, getting it all together. It is so exciting. So that was our day as a whole. And honestly, Dr. McKinney came at the very end to just kind of check in and answer some questions that kindergarten teachers always have. They're very thoughtful. So and he could see the excitement in the room of just putting these stations together. We asked kindergarten to kind of come and also share their viewpoint. So now is Catherine's turn.
Hi. So I'm Catherine Holmes. Thank you so much for letting me come tonight and talk to you. So I've been a teacher in Nashua for 30 years, and this was by far one of the best workshops I have ever attended. So that's saying a lot. I've been to many, many workshops over the years. And so if you ask me, well, what made it so special? Well, first of all, I feel it was just so relevant. You know, a lot of times workshops will be offered and it says like K-2, and you know, there's something just so unique about kindergarten. And so when you get a group of just kindergarten teachers together with some wonderful support, I mean, the sky's the limit. And it really was that day. I feel like, you know, everything, it was a little bit of talking, a little bit of sharing, but there was certainly some information for some of the newer kindergarten teachers, because we do have some of those as well, and they need some of that background information in terms of play and why it's important for kindergarten and that sort of thing. So it really was something for everyone, brand new teachers all the way up to the veteran teachers. So that was very helpful. And I just felt like it was such a positive way to start the year. You know, a lot of times teachers thinking, oh, school is coming, and we get a little nervous, and this just was such a great way to get us all excited, all together, and then, like Trish said, it really was like Christmas. I mean, if you think of the one thing that's a little bit difficult for teachers, it's always time and money, right? Because we spend so much of our money on things. So time was fixed because we had that one full day to be together and really share ideas and kind of voice concerns. And it's very unique as well in this group because we're not afraid to say, you know, what are we struggling with? What's difficult? And we're there to kind of support each other and say, well, have you tried this? What about this? So that was very successful as well. And then, of course, the money piece, just being able to get some things that they weren't just telling us about something. They were saying, okay, here it is, and guess what? Here's something to get you started. So that, just all of it, it was just so powerful. And honestly, I walked out of there that day, and I was so excited. I wanted school to start the next week. I was ready. So it really was just wonderful. I can't say enough about it. Thank you.
Wow. That's awesome. I see heads shaking in the audience, too. Thank you. All right, Ms. Van Twyver.
Thank you. I'd like to pursue the kindergarten screener. And here you told us that you discussed what worked well and what did not work well. Can you give me, and I assume the screener is a person. I'm showing my ignorance here. To just describe what were some of the things that the teachers said worked well and some that did not work well.
It could be as simple as the space that we allowed for them to record the answers. They needed different spaces at some point. We utilized the dyslexia screener so that they're able to do some of it up front. In it, though, we only had a few of the rhyming words, and the dyslexia screening has a lot more. And the teachers felt strongly that they would rather sit with their own child in their classroom and do that part of the screener, so they really knew where they needed to start. So we adjusted the screener and took that off because they would be doing it once they were in class. So it was things like that. So they're doing letter names, they're doing letter sounds, they're doing math, counting, identifying numbers. And so they were able to kind of say what did work in the layout and what didn't. As for the screener itself, there's actually teams of teachers to do the screener. So the same person is doing the letter names, maybe for 6 kids. The same person is doing the numbers. So each school is setting up a team of screeners.
Okay, so the screener is a teacher that has a special topic that they're working on. What do they use to do the screening? Is it a piece of paper that has a lot of questions on it? How does that work?
No, it's really hands-on. So, for example, at our school, and most of the schools, I believe, set up centers. So the child comes in and separates from mom, hopefully, and then goes to one of the rooms, the kindergarten rooms, where they'll meet with a teacher who's going to be doing numbers or lining up the teddy bears and then counting them together. And then she puts some information on the sheet, and then the child goes to the next person and so on. We feel like that way 6 people have eyes on the child, and so it's not just one person's opinion on how the little one is doing. And then all of that is recorded onto a sheet. They get to color. They get to have a lot of fun, and there's actually a play area set up so they can interact with each other and play side by side with someone. And we look at that to see, is that child interactive with another person, or is it just really one on, all by themselves, but watching the others? And all of those things give us a lot of valuable information when we start placing them in classrooms.
So how much time do you spend with one child for the complete screening?
30 minutes. And then we do 6 children at a time. So we have 6 centers set up, and we rotate through, and it's about 30 minutes, and then they leave, and another 6 come in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, beautiful. Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you. Very productive, and to see people who've been doing it a while get lit up is always a big pleasure. So I have a question. You said it was a full-day program. Is that a professional development day? Are the teachers being paid, or is this a volunteer day?
Teachers are being paid. It is a
Okay.
professional
Thank you.
development.
I have a question.
Oh, Ms. Timmons.
Oh, thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm excited about it because I have 2 kids going into kindergarten. Sherry, you're getting one of mine.
Yay.
And, yeah, she's a cutie, too. And Les Street is also getting one. My question is, the day that they are in the placement piece of kindergarten, how do they place those children in the classroom themselves? Is it based on what you guys did during the institute, or how is that done?
The team sits
Private.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The team sits together after we've done all the screenings of all the incoming kindergartners, and they work as a team to kind of create balanced classrooms. So they're utilizing the information they got from the screener and also what they observed behaviorally during some of the play sessions and how they transitioned. Sometimes as simple as, were they able to separate from mom? Will they need a little extra help? So that we kind of could create a really nice balance in each room. Did that answer it?
Yes. So one other question. We're at Dr. Chris specifically. Is there 20 kids per classroom? Do we know of?
There are 20.
We do know that.
Yes, there are 20 per room, and we have 3 classrooms this year.
Oh, okay. Congratulations.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Oh, Mrs. Did you have your hand up? Okay, Mrs. Raymond.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. The first, because I don't know, when did you start screening students for kindergarten? I don't remember it from when mine were in kindergarten, but it's been a few years.
Different schools have done things differently in years past.
Okay.
So at Charlotte, they always screened in the spring. And then there were other schools that didn't screen at all. So 3 years ago, we sat down and said we should be consistent. That would make sense. So we created this screener, and then we also created the timeline in which we would screen. We get a lot of students registered throughout the summer. It's always the kids that come in unknown that can throw a classroom into a tailspin. Because you think you've set real 3 equal classrooms. But this classroom only had 17, so I put 3 new kids in it. And those 3 new kids are handfuls. But you don't see that until they're in the class. Now, in order to register for kindergarten, if there's an opening, they have to be screened, even if it's as the year starts, because then we can make an educated choice of which is the best placement.
Okay, that's wonderful. And then I guess my follow-up question is, I know that it's regarding placement and balance in classrooms, but are you also identifying potential students for further IEP or 504, not plans, but evaluation?
I would have to say not really at this time because they're little and some have never been to school before. Some of our students are turning 5 next week. I mean, so you get a range of students. So we don't look at that, because we know we want to give them the time to grow and to learn about school. It certainly is something we might go back and look at if we had concerns later in the year, but at the beginning, it's just a nice way of trying to balance everybody out.
They would be the kids, though, that we would make sure the reading specialists they're aware of and they're getting support. Because if they're entering school and they don't have the skill set, they're going to need a boost. And sometimes that's all they need. They get the boost and they progress.
Okay, wonderful. And then I was really excited to see that you're still focusing on play-based kindergarten because I agree 5-year-olds need to be up and moving as much as possible. I know my daughter's 5th grade class, her teacher has them do they take a stretch break or a jumping jacks break. And, these are 9 and 10-year-olds. So 5-year-olds definitely need that. I guess my question is, as you're getting training on play-based, do you know if the para-educators are also getting training on play-based so that they can best support the teachers in the classroom?
We don't have a formal plan for that. I know that our teachers are, encouraging their paras to come and learn just like they're learning. I think it would be a great thing to do at a workshop, one of our early release days. If we could assemble the paras and do something like that, that's a great idea.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, great.
Ms. O'Hensley, did you have your hand up?
Thank you. Most of my questions have been answered. I'm delighted to see that there's progress and interesting to know how the screening works. So this has been very helpful. Thank you.
Mrs. Oden?
Thank you. That kindergarten teacher, when you ever said you had been teaching for 30 years, I almost fell out of the chair. Kindergarten keeps you very young. Sherry, I have a question for you. You have 3 kindergarten classes. How many paras do you have?
1.5.
1.5. So those paras will each spend
half a day
half a
in the
day.
classroom. Exactly. And we do rotate so that one day, if the para is there in the morning, the next day she's there in the afternoon. And that way all subjects are covered.
Okay, thank you. Trish, how about you? How many kindergartens do you have?
I have 3 kindergartens this year. I had 4 last.
Okay, and how many paras do you have?
I have 2.
You have 2 paras, okay.
I got an additional para this year.
Okay.
Congratulations.
I'm so happy.
Yeah.
So are we.
20, huh?
I just want to say, as a former teacher, probably some of the most valuable and meaningful professional development I had is when I had a chance to spend time with my colleagues from other schools. And I've always felt that administration is reluctant to let teachers have that time because they feel they have to do district-wide instruction or PD. But I think we ought to be doing more of that. I think having teachers from different schools at the same grade level, it's a wealth of information, and it is, I see you shaking your head, it's so meaningful, and it's just a good way to share good information, because what teachers share are things that are successful in their classroom. So hopefully you'll have more of those days, and I only wish that other elementary teachers at the different grade levels could have that same experience. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, well, I just want to commend all of you and Dr. McKinney for coming and explaining this to the board. I think an important part of the curriculum committee is to understand what's happening in our schools. And so this is a wonderful opportunity. Sometimes we see things and we see it on a piece of paper, but this is extremely helpful to all of us to really understand the nuts and bolts of what you're doing and how hard you all work. And that teachers work all summer, they work on the weekend, they're waking up at night, they're thinking of good ideas all the time. So thank you for everything that you do, and I really appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And can I just say a special thank you to the Nashua Education Foundation for the $2,400 that made the play-based activities happen. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for saying that, I forgot. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, great. Have a good day tomorrow. Thank you in the audience for coming too. Okay, and I just want to record that Dr. Mosley joined us. It was around 5:53, I think. Can't say exactly. Okay, then the next thing on our agenda is an assessment update. So we have iReady, SBAC, and SAS. So I'm going to turn this over to Dr. McKinney.
I apologize, I forgot my laptop, so we're doing it old school today, paper, pencil.
Okay. Everybody has this, the presentation in the
Yes.
packet. Okay.
So this is the annual end-of-year implementation and data review that comes to us from Curriculum Associates on iReady performance. We use iReady in grades 1 through 8 in reading and in math. As you heard tonight, we use other instruments in kindergarten. So I'm going to move to page 7, if that's okay, where it begins talking about our math performance review. This page speaks to the number of students in tiers from fall to spring, as well as their performance in the domains. So on the left side, it talks about placement distribution, where kids are in tier 1, 2, and 3. And then in the right is the placement by domain. Looks like they don't give you the decoder key for the domains there, but that's numbers and operations, algebraic thinking, geometry, and measurement. So if you see those on the left side onto the right.
Could you say that once more slowly?
Yep, sorry. Numbers and operations. Algebraic thinking. Geometry and measurement.
What was the last one? Oh, measurement, thank you.
So I'm just going to speak to the left side of the chart on placement distribution. So we want to see, more kids in tier 1, less kids in tier 3 towards the bottom. And if you can see, it's not. I wish you had a color copy, but the numbers moving accordingly.
Excuse me, tier 1 is at the top or the bottom?
I believe it's a tier 3 is at the top, and tier 1 is in the middle. No, tier 2 is in the middle, and then tier...
No.
I would think it would be tier 1's at the top.
Yes, tier 1's
Tier
at the
3.
top. I'm sorry, is that what I said?
No.
Tier 1 is at the top, tier 2, and then tier 3. So you want less kids coming out of tier 3, so you have only 12% of the kids performing at tier 3.
I have a question about the term early on grade. What does that mean?
Can we come to that when we go to this other page? Because I think it does a better job explaining it.
Okay,
If I don't answer it then, let me know.
yep.
Okay?
Sorry. I'm confused about why it has spring first and then fall. So are these the spring of last year and then the fall of this year? Or is
This
it?
is all of last year, so the 18-19 school year, what they took in the fall of 18 and the spring of 19.
Hi.
Okay. So to me,
Backwards.
it's backwards. Like it seems like it should go right to left
Go
chronologically, but
fall,
it
spring.
should go fall, spring. Okay. Thank you. I feel better now because I was like, how did we? Okay.
This is what's provided from the company in a PDF. I can give them a feedback in terms of reorganizing.
Right. I just
but-
wanted to make sure that I was understanding
Yep,
that this is one school year, not 2 school years.
fall to fall.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fall to spring.
I would appreciate you do report that back to them. I found a lot in here that I didn't understand because the terms just didn't mean anything to me, so.
Yeah. So thank you.
So if I may, so this makes, thank you for the clarification. So if I just look at that, you had 25% and then you went to 13%. In other words, if your fall of 18 is the column on the right, the one that has 25% in it, and as Ms. Raymond was saying, we should have them left to rights for the chronological timeline kind of idea. So if I have 25% of my kids in Tier 1 in the fall, in the beginning of the school year, and then in the spring of the following year, I only have 13% in Tier 1. So if that is correct, and I'm not sure, then we moved kids who, we lost Tier 1 kids, we moved them into Tier 2 or Tier 3.
Yeah.
So
No, you're absolutely
another pair of
correct.
eyes on that would be really helpful.
Right.
So-
I don't think I don't think it's correct that it's fall and spring of the same year, because if that's the case, all of our kids are going down throughout the year, and I don't think that's what the first graph showed. I think the first graph showed that we've gone up, our kids have improved over the year, so it has to be the spring and then the fall of the same cohort of kids.
Calendar year.
Yeah, it has to be calendar year.
How about, let's say, September of 17? No, 18, and spring of 18?
Be 19.
September and when is it, March?
Yeah, it doesn't,
Next year. That's what we think it is.
That's what we think it
it
is.
would have to be spring of 18, fall of 19. No, spring of 18, fall of 18.
It's both 18, it's both 18. The fall, the school year is September through, right,
Right.
July. So fall would be September, and spring would be March of 19. I think that's right.
Right, but if that's the case, then we've lost ground in every marker.
Maybe we should wait until we get the clarity to continue, because I don't want to be publicizing things that are backwards.
Right, I mean, my guess is that that they list it in this way because they're following a cohort of kids.
But it does say 2018 to 2019.
So, I don't,
So
Where?
The cover sheet.
Well, that makes sense. School year is,
Then it's
school year
backwards, and then we
19 is what
lost.
we're talking about.
right.
And the spring, the fall is September of 18. And the spring is March of 2019.
And they're all
Right.
going in reverse. All our students are going downhill.
Well, that's the way it's been for a long time.
except on the next page, it shows growth. It shows 134%, 123. So I don't
Madam Chair,
know.
Okay. Dr. McKinney?
you want to say?
No,
Can we just maybe make a list of questions and I could proceed through, because I have another.
I know, I was just going to ask you, would you prefer to go through your whole thing and people just hang on with their questions
Yep.
until the end? So if we
And
can,
we email the color copy out to everyone as well?
that would be
I
very
think,
helpful.
if I may, given what we have in front of us, color may help a little bit, but if we don't know when the year is, if it's
So
spring,
what-
fall, or fall, spring, we don't have a reference. We're sitting here believing that this data is telling us that we're losing ground everywhere.
So
And
what-
so if I may say, I would prefer that this conversation be deferred until, A, we all get a color copy, there's clarification about what time period is being tracked. Because I don't want to sit here, hear all this stuff, and still have the doubt in my mind that we have at the very beginning.
Okay, so Dr. McKinney, do we think that maybe we could just mark this page and come back to this page, and then it might be cleared up? Looking at other pages might be clear, or what is your preference on how to proceed here?
Why don't we have everybody with the same document next time with the color copy, and we'll go through it in its entirety.
Okay, is that acceptable to everybody?
Yes.
I think that's
Yeah.
going to be helpful, but I
Okay.
think we also need to get clarification from the vendor exactly, is that spring of 19 and fall of 18, or this needs to be labeled better. I mean, they can label their graph MO and Al, whatever. There needs to be a better
Okay.
labeling. No, because I want to point out later on, It does define tier 1, 2, and 3, but later on it talks about, there was something, level 1, 2, 3, and 4, but they don't describe what that is. So,
So my suggestion is that if people are going through this, have questions that can be passed on to the vendor, if you would email those questions to me, and I will compile them and pass them on to Dr. McKinney, and then he can try to get those.
I'm concerned that the administration doesn't have these questions.
They're going to get them.
They're going to get them. So we will address all of your issues. So if you just will email your questions regarding this presentation to me, I will compile them, pass them on to Dr. McKinney in a timely fashion so that he can address them.
Maybe we can also have a representative of the vendor here, which
That might help.
that would help a great deal, because they're just down the road. They're in Westford, I think, pretty close.
To mute,
Dr. Mosley.
can she mute it? Yeah, Gloria, could you mute your phone? Can you do that? Your paper shuffling is interrupting me.
Okay,
Sorry.
no problem.
Okay, Dr. Mosley.
Can I just make an observation? Dr. McKinney has been trying to at least provide some type of clarification and commentary, and he has not had an opportunity to get one word out pertaining to this. Be happy to take your suggestions. Be happy to take all this feedback and get the color copy. But I think it would just, if the request was earlier to the chair, if we could just go through this and just have a general dialogue about what is being presented, and then if there's more questions and clarifications, be happy to provide the color copy and to provide the clarification. I just think that I'm losing track on what the expectations are, but also too, it feels, my observation is that Dr. McKinney would like to add some commentary to the data that's being presented. We're not asking anyone to espouse or believe in anything in front of them. We're just asking people to take a review and just hear a presentation, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, so Dr. McKinney, again, how would you like to proceed?
Again, we'll get a color copy. We'll present it in front of everyone. These are the end-of-year results for the 18-19 school year, the fall of 2018 to the spring of 19. I had an hour conference call with the vendor, Donna Fitzpatrick, and our data analyst, and their full team that's listed in this, and we went through the whole thing. We're a small fish in a big ocean. The vendor's unlikely to come here and present. They generate these reports for hundreds of districts. So we can go through it. If there are additional questions, we'll do our best to get the responses.
Okay, so that's okay then. We'll do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
I would ask that the committee vote in terms of what it would like to do.
Okay, well,
We're going to do this again. We're going to have another presentation on the same data, because it seems as though nothing's going to change, because this is a canned report. So I just think that we're going to spend a lot of time now, and we're going to spend a lot of time a second time going over it a second time, because it's going to be in color. And we're going to have somehow more questions. I think the clarification will come once now you've said this is the school year. So I'm not prepared to leave page 7 until I get an explanation of why we're losing, why by every metric on the left side of this page, we're losing. We have 25%, we go down to 13. We had 63%, we go down to 49%. And for the tier 3s, we had 12, and we grew it to 38%. If we're clear that this date, as Dr. McKinney just said, was fall of 18 on the right and spring of 19 on the left, going to another page really doesn't help me until I understand this. I'll just be honest with you. This is scary as all heck.
okay. I believe, Mr. Kaufman, that you asked to have questions answered and to have the presentation in color so that it would be more understandable, and that's what Dr. McKinney has agreed to do. So I think that as the chair, I'm going to say that we are going to give him a chance to have a color presentation, to answer any questions that you might email to me. I will pass those on, and we will continue. That seems to be Dr. McKinney's preference, and I am going to go along with that. Does anyone on the committee have anything to say? Mrs. Timmons?
Unpo-
Oh, she's not there?
No, she
Yes,
muted.
yes, I'm,
okay.
I'm sorry. I
Okay,
had to
I'm sorry.
unmute.
You're on the committee, and I want to give you a chance. Was that agreeable to you?
Yeah, it is agreeable to me.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hohensie, you're also on the committee. Would that be agreeable to you?
Yes, I think giving them more time in the color to get a better presentation would be great.
Thank you. Okay, so we have agreement among the members on the committee. All right, good. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is summer well, actually, is there something else you'd like to address before we get to the summer updates?
Can I speak to this other half here, the SBAC and SAS
Please,
data? Okay.
please, thank you.
So included in your packet is information about the schools that are under accountability status. We have 5 schools that are labeled as ATS schools and 1 school as a CSI school. So the first page in your packet that we'll refer to is this guide to ESSA accountability. Has a nice little chart on the back that talks about the 2 designations. And we're really looking at the 2 columns on either end of the chart there. So CSI, we have Ledge Street in that designation right now for their performance. And then we have 5 schools over on the far right where it says additional targeted support. These schools are identified every 3 years, beginning in the fall of 2018.
I'm sorry, I'm lost. What paper are we looking at that has come?
It says at the
3
top.
of these things.
Right, it
ESSA.
says Public Guide to ESSA Accountability,
Okay.
On the back.
and then look on the
And you look-
back.
Oh, okay, in the back. All right, thank you. Sorry about that.
Nope, that's good.
The 5 schools identified as ATS schools. I'm sorry about the acronyms, but that's what we do in education is abbreviate everything. So we have Amherst Street, Birch Hill, Broad Street, Mount Pleasant, and Maine Dunstable. I'm going to talk more about those schools when we get there. Mainly, the challenge for these schools is they need to demonstrate progress annually, and they have to demonstrate progress over the course of 2 years to come out of an accountability status. So they were labeled in the fall of 2018, and their cycle will come up in 3 years from then. But with 2 years of improvement, they could move out of that accountability status. The next page in your packet gives you more information about the additional targeted supports. We'll speak to the 5 schools that are in ATS. They are looking to make not only academic growth and performance, but they're also have to show performance increase in subgroups. So the subgroups include kids who are economically disadvantaged, racial ethnic groups, students with disabilities, and our EL students. So of the 5 ATS schools, a lot of them are trying to make progress in achievement and in growth, but particularly in the area of students with disabilities, the challenge for these schools is to have growth of those kids. So a number of these schools house a number of large special education programs, Amherst, Birch, Broad, Maine Dunstable, and then Mount Pleasant as well for some of their general education. So I don't make the rules, we just try to follow them. So the challenge is for special education students, if you're severely disabled, there's another assessment you can take. But then after that, everybody else takes the same one. So these kids have to show the same level of growth and achievement as all the other students. So that's the challenge for these 5 schools over the next 2 years, is to show both overall achievement and growth, but also within that subgroup around special education students. Lastly, the sheet you have here is our CSI overview for improvement. And this specifically applies to Ledge. So Ledge was in this designation for being in the group of lowest performing Title I schools in the state, identifying every 3 years. The nice thing, well, I don't know if there's really a nice thing about being in an accountability status, but The state provided support, so the state provided training for this school and a CSI grant for them to have an allocation of funds that they can purchase. They went through a detailed analysis of their student performance data. They put together an improvement plan. They had to file that on state. And any activity they try or are going to do at that school has to align to the improvement plan in order for the grant and the funds to fall over there. Again, the challenge for our ATS schools, if you are not making academic or achievement progress over those 2 to 3 years, you can go from ATS and then be labeled as a CSI school. So we're hoping that certainly that doesn't happen, but the challenge of that subgroup, small population, is a challenge for these schools that have large special education programs.
Okay. Ms. Van Twyver.
Every year, they have to report to the State Department of Education, correct? Is that what you just said? Each of these schools? Does this...
Every year they take the state assessment, and every year those results are reviewed by the state.
So that's how the state judges whether
Yes.
the 5 schools are improving?
Yes, ma'am.
Did we get anything back from the state this year to say, yes, you're doing okay, or no, you better...
So they're on a, as it says in this other sheet here, they're identified every 3 years. The first round went on fall of 2018, so their progress has to be examined. They won't get another report until next year, whether or not these schools come out of accountability status.
It says it identifies annually to serve as an early warning. First year of identification is fall of 2019. I'm assuming that the state will come out with some kind of a statement saying you're on the right track or you're looking to need some more help. Is that not the case?
The last message I got from the state is they won't get back to us for 3 years. So the schools that are in it are in it.
Not even following their own schedule here.
I'm not going to make comments contrary to the state, but I did ask that
And why
question.
not?
I'm just a guy working
We're holding you accountable. You can hold the state accountable.
That was the last comment I had from them, ma'am. I'm happy to share the email.
Yep, no, that's quite all right. I'll call them.
Okay.
Okay, Mrs. Raymond.
Thank you. So the state is using the SAS scores to measure whether or not we meet those growth criteria to move out. So has the state provided any guidance, training, helpful materials or information to the district regarding what things ought to be on the SAS or best practices in teaching the items that are on this SAS or anything like that that would help us to target instructional improvements to help these kids?
I would say the 2 to 3 that are available are these interim and benchmark modules. They're free, they're online, they're very similar to the SAS. Teachers can administer them to the students in their class and see right away which ones they got right, which ones they got wrong. They can use it as a teaching tool and project a question on the board and walk kids through it. They see the highest performing kids in their class, the lowest performing kids in their class, and those are available in grades 3 through 8. We do encourage teachers to use them. The modules are very small ones that are aligned to a topic. So if we were doing fractions, you could do that, and that's like a half an hour. The interims cover select standards over the course of the year, and those take about an hour. Those aren't, not very popular, but those would be something you could do like a third of the year, and see where kids are. But it's a lot of online assessment. It's very similar to what they experience in the test.
Right. I hate to have our kids have more instructional time lost to testing, and I hate the idea of teaching to a test. But perhaps teachers can use that to get an idea for themselves of what kind of skills the tests are looking for, as opposed to like specific questions, but skill sets that they're evaluating. It's frustrating.
Well, they can also look at the way the questions are phrased on the test by those modules, right? They could
Yes.
be, yeah, so that's a little bit helpful. Okay. Any other questions or comments about that? Ms. O'Hensey?
Thank you. I think to Ms. Van Twyver, it says these two groups were identified at the first last fall. That was the first time schools were categorized in these two groups. And then they're identified every 3 years. So I think you have 3 years to either show your improvement or you'll be identified again. But the group in the middle, the first year of identification, is this fall. So we might have new identifications at the end of the testing that is up and coming.
On the back of the TSI, Public Guide to ESSA Accountability, the second page, in the third column over, the second block down, it says, identified annually to serve as an early warning. First year of identification is fall 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one that
Well,
hasn't
that's
been identified.
now, isn't it? Aren't we in
No,
fall
there's
20?
two categories that we have schools in. The one in the middle, we have nobody in it. Nobody's been identified. It's a 3-year
I
cycle.
picked the wrong column?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's all right.
maybe I didn't get enough training.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
all right.
But I will call them anyways. Identified every 3 years. First year of identification is fall 2018.
So no growth is possible until after the second round of testing comes out in the future this fall.
Yeah, but they wait 3 years. There could be another group of 3 that aren't doing well. I mean,
It's a trend. They're trying to identify a trend and see if they can help correct it.
well, it seems to me if you're going to do a trend, you do it every year. You say, okay, and this year they did 20%. Next
You'll
year
have
they did
something to talk
25%.
about when you call the state.
I will.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's good. We're here to, Dr. Mosley.
Just for a point of clarification, Dr. McKinney, how much additional funding are we getting to support us in this endeavor from the state as a result of being identified, particularly at Lead Street?
I'd have to double check on the numbers. I don't have those in front of me, but they do have a grant both this year and last year.
Okay, so
The other schools, they don't receive any additional funding.
so the schools that have been identified don't receive any additional funding?
Didn't
That's correct.
Fairgrounds
Oh.
Elementary get money in the past? Like
In the
over
past,
600,000, they got a huge chunk.
No, in the past, they got 10% of the Title I money. Then the remaining Title I was divided up against the other Title I. They got 10% of the Title I money. All right, Fairgrounds did. The rest of the money was divided up equally to the 5 Title I schools, and Fairgrounds got their share of that 5. So they got a bundle of money. They got but I don't know if they're going to do that for this or not.
No, there is money. Dr. Mosley's right. There
Yes,
is a chunk of
there
money
is,
that comes with this.
I agree with you, Mr. Kaufman, on this money. I wouldn't necessarily use the word chunk. I'm not sure if
It was
there's,
6 or 8, I think it was almost 6 or 8.
Okay, so this sounds like a question to get the figures and to report back on. So Dr. McKinney, would you be willing to do that for our next meeting?
Yep.
Thank you.
I assume, excuse me, one more. I assume that the SAS documentation will be not talked tonight, too?
I was just going to speak to that, ma'am. Do you have a question?
No. It's just
Okay.
that on the agenda, it said under iReady and SBAC, and I thought maybe that you're going to do both things the next time. You cover both of them the next
I
time.
think you're planning on going through this document now? Okay.
That's all right.
All right, good.
So this first chart is some of the work that Dawn Miller's been working on, and this shows the district-wide ELA reading results by grade level. Now, if you remember in our last presentation, there are subjects and then reporting categories. So the two reporting categories on the side here are reading literary text and reading informational text. Underneath that are these clusters, and you see them here in terms of key ideas and details and all the way through. The nice thing about reading is they're all the same. So this chart is pretty simple. What you can see in the key below are the achievement levels labeled accordingly, and then you can follow the chart from the left to the right from grades 3 to grade 8. And what we're looking to see are what are the areas we're doing well in and what are the areas we're not. One of the challenges here with clusters is we want to get down to this standard level. We want to know the particular standards which kids are not doing well. So while this provides some information in a window, we really want to get down to the standard level. So that's part of the work we're doing. I'm not going to speak to that in a second, but if we could just go to the next sheet, which shares some of the challenge that we're working from. Again, this is elementary math results by reporting category. Now, unfortunately, they decided not to keep it as simple as the reading side. So as you go through, they have 5 different reporting categories all the way down. And here, what we did was by grade level, grades 3, 4, and 5, show you performance based on those reporting categories. So again, while this provides a window into performance, so how our kids are doing on the last one at the bottom, for example, operations and algebraic thinking, again, we want to get more information and get closer to the standard level so we could see which standards, which we include in which units are the ones that kids are doing well on or which ones we're missing.
Is that something that comes with the SAS? How are you going to do that?
We're going to get to that.
Okay,
Oh, yeah,
good.
we
All
have
right,
a secret.
good. Okay, wow, good.
So while it looks nice on the elementary,
Sorry, one second, Garth.
Sorry, my fault. I was saying, we had this data when I arrived on the board. Our data analyst at the time created a methodology to do exactly what you're asking, which is to get down to the individual skill. She could do it for every student. She could do it for every grade level. She could roll it up for a school or a district, where we identified what skill the student might have a deficiency in and recommended and pointed out exactly what that standard was and offered documentation, teaching assistance to the instructor, to the teacher, to correct that. So hold on a second, please.
Madam
So
Chair.
what you're saying is you're now trying to find what the skill level is for a particular student that's deficient when we had that data when you arrived here at the district.
Okay, so I believe that at that time it was smarter balance testing, and now
No,
we're
it was
SAS.
iReady.
No, it was iReady.
But
And it
this
got
is-
right down to the.
But this is the SAS.
Right.
Bingo.
Madam Chair,
Same.
can I just finish going through the
Okay,
PowerPoint?
I'm going to ask again that we let Dr. McKinney finish with his presentation. If you have questions, please take notes on your paper, and we'll get to them. He needs to have a flow to this, so let's give him the courtesy of going through his presentation.
The next page speaks to the math results. So this is page 1, 2, 3 in your packet. The challenge here is in the reporting categories, they have one set for grades 3, 4, and 5, and then they change them for grades 6, 7, and 8. So as you can look, the first two, mathematical reasoning, modeling, and problem solving, are the same, but they're not the same after that. So they include different reporting categories. And you can see the performance all the way through. So what we're looking to do, Dawn Miller, is access a new program. It's called Performance Plus. It used to be free from the state, and now it comes at a cost to help us uncover what's happening with student performance at the standard level from all students and see trends across different schools. The next page speaks to elementary performance in ELA. I think there was a request for annual performance over the course of 3 years. So this is annual by achievement level from SY 17, 18, and 19. by grade. The first one is elementary in terms of reading. The next page is middle school performance across the grades, which are nicely in color, which are slightly easier to read. And the last two pages speak to elementary and middle school performance in math across those 3 years by achievement level. So you can see level 1, level 2, level 3, and it's color-coded all the way through. But again, the name of the game is for us is working with Dawn Miller, turning on Performance Plus to do further analysis, and then we have data summits that are sponsored by the state. Ms. Van Driver was asking about what is the state doing or what other reporting. There's they have a partner that is doing data dives. So we have teams of teachers, including the schools that are in these accountability status, going to those summits to learn more about the data itself so we can further remedy student performance.
Okay, I'm going to take questions from the committee first. So Ms. Hohensie.
Thank you. So what is the cost of Performance Plus, and are we putting it on next year's budget, or are we doing it now?
I don't have the number in front of me, but I want to say it's about $10,000 to $20,000. It's coming out of a grant. It's one of the new grants that are available to the state.
Okay, so we are paying for it this year out of a grant.
Mhm.
Okay, second, I'm looking at these scores, and whatever we're using, these scores tell us it's not working, whether it's reading or whether it's math. The first page, you look at grade 3, and they're doing better in grade 3 in reading than they are in grade 8, where it's practically all red. So the reading, the math, everything, our scores go down by grade. Every year, our students become less proficient. If you look over the 3 years, there's the same disintegration. It's not growth. If you look at grade 3, where you go from proficiency from 24 to 20 to 19%. Each year, it's lower. And you look at the end in grade 8, where they're finishing, and it was in 2017, it was 12%, then it's 18%, or 11%, now it's 8%.
You got that up too high.
Whoa.
I'm talking too
Mrs.
loud?
Timmons, is something wrong?
I'm sorry. My granddaughter's burning the house down.
Okay.
Oh, that's
I'm
understandable.
sorry.
That's all right. Good
Okay.
luck. So I'm not seeing growth. I'm not even seeing stability. I'm seeing that we're not doing well for our students. If these 3 years are accurate, we need to reassess what we're teaching. I don't care if the state says that these are the best standards or not. Our evidence is saying they are not the best standards. They're not producing growth. You can't have 8 in the blue. Just take the last page or so for reading, or you can even do it on math. You start in 3rd grade, and there's a lot of blue and green where they're the top levels. And then you look at the 8th grade, and it's disintegrated. I mean, am I reading the charts right?
It's your opinion. I don't necessarily concur with your opinion, but it's one assessment from the state on one snapshot in time how kids do.
Okay, well, then we should just forget about preparing for this test, because we obviously are wasting time, because if they were 22% proficient in the 3rd grade, and then they come down at the end, and we're talking about 12% at the top level of proficiency.
Those
in
are
8th
different
grade.
kids.
We'll follow them for 3 years. It doesn't matter. What we're seeing is every grade level, it's disintegrating. There's more and more red. There's more and more students that are not proficient. I mean, tell me I've got the colors backwards. Tell me that I'm not reading it right.
Frankly, I don't understand what you're reading. If you look at this one page,
Which one page?
elementary performance in reading across 3 school years,
Yeah?
3 years of 3 different cohorts of kids,
Mm-hmm.
in 3 different grade levels.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you want all the scores, regardless of their background or where they're coming from, all the scores to go forward?
It would be nice if they were at least stable. I mean, we're talking that they're not doing well.
I understand.
They're all around the same. The scores are fairly level. The scores for some of these students and the results mean nothing. 8th graders can take the test whether they're engaged or not. The results of that don't count. They move on to the next grade. There's no accountability status. We get labeled from the state, but the individual students move on. Certainly the level of investment at parents varies from degree to degree. We do our best with, I don't think there's a teacher in the district that goes in day to day not looking to do the best for their kids.
I'm not
With
saying
the
they are.
resources that they have, with the test and the game that's been assigned to them for subgroups and so many other things. So I'm sorry you feel that way.
I'm not faulting the teachers. I'm saying maybe it's the materials we're asking them to use. You take cohort A in 2017 in 3rd grade, they were at 24% proficiency. You look in grade 5, they're 19% proficiency in the blue color. So they have gone down 5% over 2 years. That's how I'm reading it. So I'm not seeing a lot of growth in any cohort. So
These are,
and it's the same on the next page. They start one place. I'm just wondering if the materials we're using, did we get this type of results before we switched to the current materials? Why are we testing if we're not analyzing the results? I'm looking at the results, and I'm not very happy.
Dawn Miller has been doing everything possible.
Not blaming Dawn, she's the
I'm just speaking to
statistician.
what you're saying.
No, you're not.
Okay.
Can I?
Okay. Dr. Mosley.
I'm sorry. How much time do we have here?
Well, we started at 5:30.
Are we still doing that non-public?
Yes,
I'll wait till then.
thank you.
Okay, looking at the second year of reading, you go from grade 6 to grade 8. You take the 2017, look at the level of the red. Okay, they're not up to grade level. We've only have 23%. 2 years later, that same group, we have 37% not up to grade level. So we start with 23% that need a lot of help. Now we have 37% 2 years later. To me, we're not going in the right direction. If that's acceptable and that's not worthy of a discussion, I don't know why we're having meetings.
Mrs. Raymond.
Thank you. What year did we change from SBAC to SAS? Was that 2018 or 2017?
It was 2 years ago.
This is 19, 20, 18, 19, 17, 18.
17, 18. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we were looking at the same test for all 3 years. And I was unsure if that was the case.
That's an interesting question. According to the state, it is, yes, the same.
Okay. Interesting.
There's nothing that says it didn't change the test either.
Right.
It's the type of test that you take. If you answer well, it goes up. You know, you get a
Adaptive.
harder question.
Yeah, it's
It's an
adaptive.
Adaptive, thank you.
Like iReady.
I'm having a lot of trouble getting words out of my mouth.
That's all right.
But you remember the concepts.
So I guess maybe to put on the queue for a discussion is, what I'm hearing is looking at the test results, but also kind of a deeper dive into what that means. So as you're preparing for the next meeting with the prior presentation, maybe this is something that you could address the next time?
Yep.
Would that be acceptable?
Yep.
Okay.
One more other thing.
Mrs. Raymond.
I'd just like to point out that the purpose of a deeper dive is to find out what we can do as a board to help our teachers, help our students.
Yes.
Like that's the purpose. The purpose is to, what can we do? You know, if there's things that teachers need that we're not giving them, let us know so that we can work on that.
Dr. Mosley?
I think that that's been already teased out through the strategic plan. And everything we're hearing and talking about the curriculum and the gaps and the chasms and the consistency, not just at the elementary school, but also at our middle school and into our high school, has already been teased out when we presented to the board around the strategic plan and some of the themes that came out of the focus groups. No one's here saying that let's take the middle schools. We have acknowledged that there needs to be more consistency around not just one school, within one school, but also throughout all of our middle schools. We have to acknowledge, again, when we talk about pricing, we talk about faculty. The faculty would love to get more professional development, but that hasn't happened. So there are a variety of factors that I think the faculty have been very clear about what they're looking for from the board in terms of support, and from us, and from the general public as well.
And I think that that's what's going to come out of those instructional leadership teams at the building level, those teams are going to be in the process of being formed in the fall. So we will be addressing those things. Ms. Van Twyver.
I also have a question about Fountas and Pinnell.
Okay, we'll be coming, can you hang on to that? And
Yeah.
we will be coming up to that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Didn't see that on the agenda, okay.
Okay, would you have a specific, is that
Oh, I'll wait
tied to
until-
testing? Is
Huh?
that?
Well, yes, I was expecting to hear something about that. We were supposed to be developing a database with the teacher's response for every student and what grade level they were reading on.
Are you talking about the benchmark
Thank
assessment?
you, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I thought that was supposed to be in the works, but to me, these figures are proof of either we're doing the right job or we're not doing the right job, okay? Now, I agree with Ms. Johansi that we're going down in these things, have ever since I've been on the board, and I don't understand why when we spend so much money on reading and mathematics. Just doesn't make any sense to me. That if you've got some other measurement that you think is right, show it to me, so you can prove to me that we're making progress here. I don't see it.
Okay. Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you. A couple of questions. Ms. Hohensee is our resident mathematician. And I think she's trying to point out that over a period of time, comparing them has been a steady increase in lack of proficiency, if I can say it that way. Things are getting worse, they're not getting better. And I think in her comment, she alluded to, didn't say it outright and specific, so I'm going to try and interpret something with a little bit more emphasis, is are we using a curriculum that works? I think that's an underlying question. If we're looking at data that continues to disappoint, that we need to look as part of this deep dive and ask ourselves, are we using the correct curriculum that enables our teachers to teach our students so they become proficient in the subject matter? And this kind of data, if you did it for 5 years, what would it be? And I realize the tests may have changed, but overall, whatever they described should be representative across. What is meant by level 1, 2, 3, and 4? Is that proficiency of certain percentages? Can you tell us what that is, please?
Those are the achievement levels. I couldn't tell you specifically what the cut scores are, but they do have a range. So if you're performing in a certain area, you're above proficiency, you're higher than the being proficient at that grade level or below, and then insufficient
It
information.
would be helpful to know what those breakpoints are. Additionally, I want to know what's being done on a remedial basis to fix this. Because I don't believe the strategic plan had any specific programs or requests to address this type of data. And we create these tier 1, 2, 3 kids, right? If we pass them to the next grade, there's no, we want to, and I've asked this question before, is that can we institute something that says, you're not really ready to go from 3rd to 4th. We want you to spend an extra couple of months with us so we make sure you've got those basics before we move the kids on. What did you call it? Moving them up, I think was the terminology, something like that. So this is part of the problem. The kids are moving, their lack of proficiency goes with them, and it only gets worse after 2 or 3 years. And they don't come out of the cycle of being tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3. And then in one of the charts, we actually had an unlabeled tier 4, which was more than, I think, 3 years behind. I believe we manufacture those kids by the process, by the materials that we're using. I don't blame teachers here. I blame the process. And I don't think we have accountability built into the process that enables the teachers to say, wait, this student really isn't ready. They might be fine in the math. They might not be ready in the reading, or the other way around, whatever. But the deep dive needs to include curriculum assessment.
So
if
may I,
what we're
may I
using,
address that, please? May I
Please, sure.
answer you, please? So you referred to the strategic plan, and yes, it has been addressed in there. And it's not the plan, it's not the job of the strategic plan to name a program or to name the certain thing. The job of the strategic plan is to put the systems in place whereby these conversations can happen. So there are instructional leadership teams that are going to be put into motion in each of our schools, each elementary, middle, and high school. The job of that is for, and if you look in the strategic plan, which I did not bring with me, but if you look in the appendices under the task forces, there was an appendix, I don't remember which one it was, and it goes into detail to explain what the mission of each of those teams would be. There's a cross-section. We've detailed what the membership on each of those teams should be. Those people are the people who are in the classrooms, in the school. They are going to look at exactly these issues. They're going to look at the test scores. They're going to look at the materials that are being used. They're looking at a wide range of things, which are detailed in that appendix. Those instructional leadership teams we're looking to get from the front lines up, okay? So where the kids are, where the teachers are. They're looking at all those things, they're evaluating them. They're going to be reporting out to administration, who is going to look at, they can find trends, so maybe they're going to look and see a certain thing that we're doing is not working and we need to change it. Or a certain thing we're doing is going well, we want to shore that up. They're going to be looking at the individual school level and at trends at different, perhaps, grade levels or school levels. And this is something that's going to take some time. So to say that we're not looking at that or that the strategic plan has not addressed that is incorrect. And we're just going to have to give some time here and let these teams be formed and start to do their job. And, you know, which is not to say that all along teachers have not been looking at test scores. I know that Mrs. Oden and I can attest to that we're always on teams, we're always looking, we're always trying to improve. The other thing I want to say is this SAS is an exceptionally difficult test. I'm talking just my personal, it's over the top difficult. And to put all our eggs in that basket is really unfair. I would challenge many adults to take this test and be able to do well. I think that we have our curriculum, our math program. Eureka Math has tests that go with it. We have the benchmark tests, and kids on a day-to-day basis are making progress and they are doing well. And I feel that it's very not a very in-depth look to just go by these scores. Dr. McKinney.
I just want to comment. One of the things that we'll be working towards this year is, and which is in the board's purview, is the curriculum management plan. Mm-hmm. And I think it speaks to the questions you're asking, Mr. Kaufman, of how do you know the curriculum's working? That has been out of date for a number of years now, needs to come back online, because that you can't just look at isolated information like this and make determinations around curriculum. So we want to get our steering committees together, have multiple data points, and make determinations around the effectiveness of our curriculum. So that's on the docket for this year.
Yes, it is. There's a lot of work to be done.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Mrs.
May I have a
Raymond?
follow-up, please?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. So, great, the strategic plan is going to do the deep dive. That's terrific. That's going to take 1, 2, couple of years before it all gets sorted out, correct? Based upon what you just said. My concern is for the students that are in the middle here, that are in Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, Tier 4, which they don't really label, that those kids now, in the moment, I want to know what's being done to help them remediate until all this curriculum evaluation and stuff happens. My focus is on the kids who aren't going to benefit from whatever curriculum decisions get made 2 or 3 years from now. I'm concerned about the kids who are in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade especially, who are deficient in terrible ways, and we're saying, oh, the strategic plan is going to look at that to help kids 5 years from now. I want to know what we're doing now to help the kids, because we're measuring kids in this system, in these grades. So that's what my challenge is to the administration, is to please explain to the board and the public what's being done now, not what's going to be done in the future. What's being done this school year to help these kids get out of this Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 status.
I did not mean to imply that there was nothing happening currently and that there had been nothing happening all along. I can say in all of my years in Nashua, every single year, no matter what year it is, we're always looking at ways to improve. So I did not mean to imply that the strategic plan is starting something that hasn't been going on.
I know it's been going on because I ask this question every year. Okay. So what's been done? What's been updated? What's been changed? Do you have enough money in the budget? I didn't see any specific, I don't recall, specific, I mean, I've asked, anyway, you get the gist of the point.
Yes.
I'd like to know what's being done now to remediate what we have. The strategic plan is a future thing. I'm interested in the kids that are now Tier 1, Tier 1, 2, and 3, and what we're doing to fix it.
Okay, Mrs. Raymond.
I just, I think that Mr. Kaufman has an important point, but I think we have belabored the point extensively at this point. And I think some of his questions about what's being done now are answered in the Curriculum Chronicle, which is in our packet and the next item on the agenda. So, which talks about what's being done right now. So.
Madam Chair, I've been on the board 8 years. The first year I was on the board, we did a goals ad hoc committee, and at that time we talked about reading at grade level for 3rd graders. Now, Mr. Kaufman brought up the fact about, are we holding kids back? We don't do that. It has to be an agreement by the teacher and the mother and father, all right? So we don't hold them back. And these grades, these test scores have been going down ever since I've been on the board. And I trust what you say, Ms. Porter, that every year you're looking to improve. If that's the case, why aren't we seeing that in the scores? I just don't understand it. If the SAS test is too hard, is anybody squeaking up at the Department of Education saying, you're out of bounds with this? That's not what a 4th grade or a 3rd grade kid should be understanding and reading and math. I find it so doggone frustrating because I think that reading is the most important thing. In fact, if it was me, I wouldn't teach anything but reading, writing, arithmetic from grades 1 through 3, and that's it. Until they get those mastered, they don't go anywhere. But it's very frustrating to understand what's really going on here. It really is.
Mrs. Hohensie.
I just want to say briefly that it's not just the SAS that our scores are going down. It's also the iReady report. I'm not trying to point a finger at anybody. I'm just saying to the board, we need to be aware of it. What can we brainstorm to help? That's all. It's not accusatory. It's just recognizing the numbers. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. All right. So,
and Ms. Porter, another thing. We're not trying to make anybody look bad. any teacher. We want to help the teachers to get these kids being able to read and write. That's all. And I get really uptight when I hear, well, you know, they're afraid that you're going to use this against them. That's not what we want to do. And if that's the attitude that's being promoted throughout the district, that's tough. It's really tough because every one of us, I think, is passionate about education and getting these kids ready for future generations so that when I'm in a nursing home, I get someone who's educated that I can talk to, you know? Or to carry on the more important things of this society. So, I mean, if you think that we're being nasty about this or we're pushing it too hard, I'm sorry. But to me, the worst thing you can do to a kid is not have them reading at a decent level so that they can take on their education and educate themselves by reading books and all that, and have them prepared for these jobs out in society. So I'm sorry if you guys feel that way, but I'm very passionate about this. I don't have children in this school district. I don't have children at all, but I know what education has done for me. And I would hate to think that another child could go through our school system and not be able to read and write at grade level. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. McKinney, do you have anything to say on this, or are we ready to move on?
We're ready to move on.
I think we're ready.
Okay, all right. Okay, so as for the summer updates,
Included in your packet is just information, working back to front. This year we had the first annual new para-professional orientation. So new paras to the district per contract are required to come one day early. So we put together this training for them. The union agreed and graciously bought them all lunch. So I want to thank everybody that was involved from HR and a lot of our special education process. It was a nice way to get our first graduating class off to a positive start. About 30 paraprofessionals were there, so I'm very happy with the first ever class, but the feedback so far has been pretty positive. A couple little things to work out logistically, but I can't say enough about the work that the paras do, and it's nice to treat them accordingly and welcome them to our district because they're like hidden champions for kids and teachers. The next one in your packet is a copy of the new teacher orientation. Every year we have this for new teachers. This year we had a high score of over 100 teachers go to do teacher orientation. It's a nice way to welcome them to the system. I mean, two dynamo people, and Diane and Paula, who make all this happen. So it's 2.5 days of training, networking. We train them, we feed them, and it's a nice way to welcome them to the district and know that we believe in them and support them. And then lastly, this is the back-to-school edition of the Curriculum Chronicle. I tried to capture things that are coming this year and things over the summer. So you'll see pieces in here from the Summer Kindergarten Institute, steering committees, the TDEC teacher rubrics that were approved last year that have been put in place, frontline piece, social emotional learning, and we welcome a new team of elementary peer coaches, 3 very good educators who are there to help and support teachers, and their main goal this year is to get in and help and support teachers with craft and practice and instruction. So is that page included? Yep, so in the back, I'm sorry, the back you have a an outline of those people, kind of like a biography, and then what things they're working on in terms of targeted areas of support. So I met with them today, and they shared the teachers are excited because they've never had a peer coach before, so somebody who can come in and work with them and model lessons. So they're out and about doing meet and greets, and they have like a coaching form. So if you want them to come in, you click on a Google form and you pick what kind of help they want, and then It's like an Amazon package, so they show up the next day and then help you out. So,
I think this is really great. This is a way that we can show that we're supporting teachers. So we're really putting our efforts where they're needed here. So thank you for including that. Ms. Van Twyver?
Sorry to be so wordy tonight, but on the district new teacher orientation, it has been in the past that the HR director goes over the policies briefly with the new teachers and just to give them introductory information about where they can find the policies and to explain any new policies to them. And I don't see that here on the list that was done, but it is an important thing.
So it did happen during the power orientation. You can see that on the agenda. I believe that Ms. O'Gara goes school to school and does a faculty meeting at each school, as opposed to doing it in front of all the new teachers.
Well, she did both.
So she presented in front of the paras, and then for the new teachers, she goes school to school and presents at the school site all the policies. We call it POPs, all the personnel policies.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that she did it both places. She did it to the new teachers orientation, then she went out to the schools. I went with her, so.
Okay, I will check with her.
Mrs. Oden?
I have one question on the instructional coaches. I can remember when they were first used in the district, there was a definite statement made that they would not corroborate with principals, that they were strictly there for the support of the teacher. Is that still the case?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I would just comment, one of our coaches, who will go unnamed, will never reveal the teachers. You know, I look for themes, I look for trends, but I don't want them to report out names and feel that any teacher should feel threatened or worried about that. They're teacher whisperers. They're in there to help and support teachers, just like Diane and Paula. They're just there to help and support them. And I think it's a different relationship than having somebody who's an administrator trying to counsel a teacher. So, you know, they can meet with an administrator, hear their feedback, and then they can go and make it happen or vent with a peer coach.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. O'Hensey?
Thank you. I noticed in the social emotional learning, you're having educators sign up to receive tools. Are parents signing up to engage their kid? Because I believe that's what the state law is, that the parents have to give written consent. So I'd like to be updated on how that's working. Also, I was at a presentation through the department, and they're incorporating for SEL in a lot of their grants and different things that they provide to the districts, a set of SEL standards called 40 developmental assets. They have different age groups, like 3 to 5, 5 to 9, 8 to 12, and 12 to 18. I was wondering if the district's aware of those. Okay, so you're familiar with those, okay. Because I just wanted to make sure that there was some consistency. If we're getting grants and we're being required to use those in certain grants, I want to make sure they're compatible with what we as a district are doing. Okay. And can you give me an update on, at maybe later date, something about how parents are being notified and how they're giving their written consent to this new program? Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. At this time, I would like to go into a non-public session under RSA 91A:32C. So can I have a second?
I second that.
Okay, so on the motion to go into non-public, Mrs. Porter votes yes. Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. O'Hensey?
Yes.
Okay, so we are going into non-public at 7:25.